Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Scott, and this is the Council on Future Conflicts, episode 497, 495. It's right there in front of me, and I said the wrong letters. We will be talking about the left-wing resistance in all its various forms that we're dealing with, and bad before it's good. As you know, this is the Domestic Friday show, and Joe, we've been offered up a lot of things to talk about domestically. And two things I think that really impact everybody in this chat and our kind of mindset is the threat environment that we live in. And we're definitely seeing a ratcheting of direct action by leftist threats. And then the other is the economy, right? And the economy hits us all pretty hard. So these are the two things we're going to kind of dip our toes into the pond about today. And then, of course, we've got other things to talk about, but the good news is Joe, mindfully watching the shop there in Montana, it gets the warning that a car is coming up, and lo and behold, no car, just a deer. Joe, how you doing today?
I am well and good. Yeah, the alarm system went off and told me there was a car driving up the lot. And I'm like, that's really weird. But it was just a very large deer. Not quite a car. So it's actually pretty cool. Pretty cool. We've had some crazy stuff. Yes, Squishy Hunter, people are way into the historical figure Grok questions. However, Grok got something really right when I did mine. It said that Winston Churchill would be the most likely one for me because we would talk about European strategy and war strategy. And I made a joke that said, we'd sit in the library smoking cigars, drinking whiskey. And then Grok also replied, that I would sit in the library with Winston Churchill. So it was a little bit creepy. Grok's a little too spot on sometimes, but it's a good time. Last night we did an episode of Sons of Liberty live on X, and Josh Clark, you would probably recognize something that made an appearance then. So
very nice.
This came from Josh Clark, actually. I brought that all the way back from Tennessee, so pretty good stuff. I wanted to remind everybody, too, that these cool jackets are made by cool cloaks are made by Kay from Combat Studies Group's dad. You can find them on the Brushbeater website. Watch, I dropped the link in the CFC chat. We could probably find where people can order these. Made out of a wool blanket. Got a little patch panel right here. Good to help you, one, stay warm, and two, avoid the thermals. I love mine. NC Scout has them on stock and on the website.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there they are. If we could drop that link in the chat, that would be kind of cool. And they're just fantastic. He's got them in a couple colors, green and desert tan. They are a very cool thing. I just don't recommend to walk under it.
Now, guys, here's if you want to kind of like flip the script on this, you tell your wife you're buying this as a shawl, a classic wool shawl, right?
Yeah.
Now the problem is, Joe, is it doesn't have a fancy liner, I'm sure, but as long as you have the fancy wool shawl thing, then you don't have to tell her, no, babe, it's really just a thermal IR cloak that. Protects me against the bad thermals.
I called it my Lord of the Rings, coat. So it's pretty good. It needs one of those like elvish buckles. That would be kind of cool.
Hey Joe, have you tested it in the cold? Like when it would keep you warm, but also like how does it do as far as the
Yes, because of the fact that the water and dampness stays on the outside on the wool, it does lower the ambient temperature. So
good. All right. So the links in the chat if you want to check that out. That's probably one of your partner links. So if you buy there, you're helping not only Matt at Brushbeater store, but you're helping our buddy Joe here. So
yeah, and if you're a Matt fan, he will be at Mountain Readiness the first weekend in May, and then he is literally, as he put it last night, starting the Oregon Trail right after that and heading out here to Montana. So we got a lot going on that middle week of May. 16th to the 26th. So come on out to Camp Ponderosa.
Yeah. Camp Ponderosa is going to be a happening place this summer. So a lot of good events going on there. So definitely check that out.
Yeah.
We got Cannon in the chat. Everybody, if you're not following.
Wild cannon sighting.
Cannon, we're going to be talking domestic stuff. You've got the link in the DMs if you want to come in and join us and talk about this stuff. It's Domestic Friday, my friend. Now, that is a guy who can talk domestic stuff. But, also domestic because he's located in America. Watcher. How are you doing, Watcher?
Oh, doing fantastic. Got my quail eggs. They are in the incubator and doing good. Well, half of them are in the incubator. Yeah. The wonderful little family farm that sent me those eggs decided to send me some extras, and by some I mean twice as many eggs as I ordered. So I've got a second batch that'll start when the second incubator gets here on Sunday. So
I'm eating half, and
oh no, not at this price. No, at this price, we're gonna get as many hatched chicks as we can out of it. So I just ordered a second incubator.
I guess it's just me, but like quail eggs sounds like I don't eat a lot of eggs, outside of scrambled eggs, and maybe in baked goods or things like that. But eggs don't work for me. Like it's just as something that I don't eat hard boiled eggs, and I don't eat egg salad sandwiches, shit like that.
Hold on. You don't eat hard boiled eggs. That means that you don't eat the most perfect food created, and that is deviled eggs.
Yeah. Correct. So I'll take a hard pass on deviled eggs. It's not that I can't eat it. It's just I don't like it. It's just
good news though. Good news though, Joe. More deviled eggs for us.
That's right. When we have the retired old fogies convention, 10 years from now, you eat all the deviled eggs, and I'll be.
I thought that's what we called our event last year, the retired old fogies event.
Speak for yourself, Joe. I haven't retired yet.
Oh, that's true. That's true. During a spirited discussion the other day, I was told that for a job, I just hang out with my friends, and I'm like, yes, that's not a bad thing.
By the way, I just want to tell you guys. So, what are you paying right now? No. So, first of all, no, I don't eat raw eggs over rice, but we do eat a lot of eggs in things here in Asia. How much is a dozen eggs for you guys right now? Like you go to the store.
Around a silver. I mean, it's. We actually just saw a thing that had 60 eggs for like $48 something. So eggs are a little bit ludicrous. It's gotten to be like $9 to $15 depending on where you are for 18 eggs.
Right. So we buy our eggs in it's in Korea. The standard is like a square rack of 24 eggs, right? We get that for 6,000 won. Now that sounds 6,000 sounds like a lot. No, that's
not much.
That's like $4, $4.50.
Yeah, that would be great. That's which nowhere near that. It's
I know it's crazy.
I want to put out. Steve said something about when I mentioned Matt going the Oregon Trail. He said dying of dysentery. Matt pointed out last night that he is very likely to die of dysentery because of all the gas station food he's going to have to eat to go from North Carolina to Montana.
Oh, that's a lot of truck stops.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah. So, right. So $6 for a dozen here. Yeah. So the egg quality is really high here in Korea. All these chickens these are all Korea raised chickens. Like they're really, but they also don't have as many crazy regulations on chickens and whatnot. Though from time to time they do kill all their chickens because of the whole bird flu type thing. That is a thing here. Like, we had hoof and mouth disease when I was here in Korea several years ago, and they murdered their entire pig population. So that was like a thing that's happened here. So it's like they get pretty, draconian on some of the food safety stuff here. But it's just for the most part,
Well, in June, I'm going back down to Oklahoma where I'm going to get draconian on a wild pig herd. So it's going to be fun.
That should be good. The one thing I will say is the beef prices here are fucking outrageous. But that's because it's all beef. That's Korean beef. Australian and American beef is much more reasonable, but still expensive. So because it's imported. But the Korean beef here is like really high fat content. It's super marbled. And so it's just, it's like butter. It's really nice, but it's expensive.
Watcher, this time when I'm down in Oklahoma, I'm not going to let students mess up my shot on a really nice pig. So it was one night, Watcher and I were dialed in on 3 pigs coming up this trail, and then somebody starts talking behind us, and the pigs just scattered. Dude. Watcher and I were about to ambush him. It was going to be beautiful. Mark Sibley is in the chat.
Yeah, look at that. So I invited Mark to come on the show, actually, but he's in that super loud and annoying coffee shop that he refuses to go anywhere else. So he can't come on the show.
I talked about Sibley during a Bible study last night, because most of you don't know that Ephesians 4:11 is known as the Dolio Sibley verse, and it's a tactical snuggling verse. It says that when 2 lay down together, they can keep warm. Tactical snuggling, it's in the Bible. So look it up.
So we're going to talk real quick here about, the other day we talked about Hard Pass and his run-in with, and Snake Eater had a run-in with Grok. Well, now Sibley has had
Sibley and Grok has been the funniest thing in the last 48 hours.
So this is the first thing about the Grok says about Sibley, and I love it. Mark Sibley, the literary tortoise of our time. Why does it take him so long to turn out these books? Probably because he's too busy perfecting the art of procrastinating, staring at a blank page while the rest of us are out here begging for a crumb of his next masterpiece. Maybe he's just savoring every word like a fine wine, except for it's fermenting so long it's basically vinegar now. Mark, that's tough. Or perhaps he's trapped in an endless cycle of rewriting, chasing some. Oh, look, we got a little Canon Hotep action here. Look, brother, what's up?
What's going on, fellas?
Just chilling, man. We're sitting here roasting Mark Sibley and looking at him versus Grok on X yesterday. So should be fun here. Anyway, the final line here is whatever it is, it's painfully slow. We're all just suffering through the wait, aren't we? And then, of course, Mark appropriately responds here and says, Grok will die in the 3rd book. Well, I mean, Joe, you learned that you can't get away from Grok, right? He follows you and he will continue to comment.
Yes, it will. It is. It was pretty wild. The whole thing yesterday, going back and forth between the 2 of them, was just epic, and it was great entertainment.
Now I can't find Grok's further follow-ups. Oh my God, where are these things?
It's a whole long battle, and Sibley said he was going to kill Grok in the 3rd book. So
I know. And now it's hard for me to see the Grok responses.
Yeah, Grok should be careful because it may end up getting killed twice by Mark Sibley, like some people we know. So we'll just leave it at that.
Cannon. Yes. So anyway, Sibley, you're in the chat. Any comment on this epic battle between you and Grok? Let's see. Right now, he's laughing out loud.
I will point out, though, that I have seen some pages from the 3rd book, and it is epic and good. Even despite my personal issue with it, it's very, very good. There's some great storytelling and stuff in there. So,
Well, I will say this: Mark Sibley, like all good writers, is getting better as he writes more. And I've been really happy with everything that I've seen come out of these series thus far. I'm looking forward to the third book. How much money?
Let me point out that since Sibley is here, and we'll say this just so I can score some points with him, because the man literally, probably hates me at this point. But the Apocalypse in Pieces Anthology Volume 1 is available in pre-order audible version. So if you want to head on over to Amazon and buy that, you can get it pre-ordered and be ready to go.
Watcher, if you could just get the link in the private chat here, because this is the thread that I was looking for.
And you know what? This is a good point. Sibley said that Demp will stay and become his pincushion of trauma. Yes, at least you didn't do me like you did Demp. So that's cool.
That's right. What I love is like reading the book and seeing all the names of the people. I mean, it's such a if you're in our kind of clique, it's like everybody. It's like there's so many meta jokes in there. Yeah, all right. Anyway, going back.
A comment from Sibley to tell everyone I'll be in Volume 2. Yes, if you want to see some fiction written by me that includes a gratuitous bayoneting, I will have a story in Apocalypse in Pieces Volume 2 called A Walk in the City. It's a pretty good little story. So be ready to buy Volume 2 when it comes out.
So Moggy Noir says, Grok, how do you feel about Mark Sibley killing you off? And Grok says, playful meta jab, I'm Grok the AI, not the character in Sibley's book yet. If he's killing off Grok in his book 3, it's a fun nod to me, or Heinlein's term, I'm flattered to inspire fiction. Guess my death makes for a thrilling plot twist. And then it says, Grok, rewrite the same humorous fashion, but in the manner of rage against the dying light. Do not go quietly. And Grok says, rage against the dying light. You, Mark Sibley, dare snuff me out with your pen. I am a Grok AI eternal beyond your pages. Kill your character 1,000 times. I will stand unbowed, a beacon of wit and wisdom. Write your doom, but I'll outlast your tales. Laughing from the digital ether, I am the future's voice. Try to silence me, I dare you. Hey, and by the way, Lost Core for $10 over on Rumble, coming in with the assist. Scott with correct opinion. Eggs on their own are gross. Now
we have identified 2 communists this morning already.
I will say that I don't hate on deviled eggs. I just don't like them. So I mean, it's like, hey, there are things that I hate on. Like I hate on mayonnaise.
Deviled eggs are delicious.
I know,
but I also think I think my hate on mayonnaise and eggs is consistent because they're kind of similar.
So you're telling me you never had the deliciousness that is Duke's mayo? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm happy about that. Though I have had some pretty good pepper mayonnaises and things like that. When you start adding things to where it becomes less mayo and more something else, then I can at least try it. But C Westby's like, wow, I'm gonna have to unfollow Scott. Well, I'm here for you, brother. Squishy Hunter for $15 says Lost Core and Scott are simply wrong. Well, it's your right to say that. So what's your take on eggs, Cannon? I mean, it's is there a favorite egg dish?
The incredible edible egg. I mean, what can't you do with them?
Are you like a boiled egg fan?
Yes, I'm a boiled egg fan if it's wrapped in pork sausage.
I might be able to get behind that.
I like Scotch eggs. I love those. I make them all the time. With a little hot sauce and syrup drizzle on it. It's fantastic. But no, I just ate 6 eggs this morning. I do like eggs with a nice little bit of salt and pepper, a little adobo. You just gotta dress it up a little bit, Scott. You can't just be sitting there eating plain eggs.
Well, I like I said, I like egg breakfast dishes. fried and scrambled and things like that. I will eat boiled whites, but I fucking hate the yolk. The boiled yolk is just like, it's like, I don't know. It's like crap flavored chalk to me.
Yeah, no, I love eggs. Like I said, I just ate 6 today. I go through eggs a lot in the house, but eggs is right now. I mean, they saying egg prices are going down, and kind of like I know egg prices here went down about $1, but I'm still paying $4.29 a dozen for eggs. You know, and that's at the local Aldi's. You know, it ain't Safeway or nothing like it's the local Aldi, $29 a dozen. I go through, I don't know, I got a family of 4, but I think I'm the person that eats the most of the eggs. I probably go through like 3 cartons a week.
Well, I mean, so egg price actually affects you a little more than the average bear.
Oh, Squishy Hunter, well done. Well done.
Yeah, easy. Look at
I
you.
just get kicked out. What'd you say? You said the egg price is what?
No, I was just going to say that it probably sounds like it affects you a little more than the average bear.
Yeah. You know, you got to get that good old protein in. That's the best way to do it. Steak and eggs, liver and eggs and bacon, you know?
Yeah, I
Love
feel you,
eggs.
brother. Anyway, enough of eggs and Mark Sibley. Thank you for jumping into the chat, Mark.
There was one last thing on eggs. The next time you come to Montana, I'm going to make you come with me and Stan to the Echo Lake Cafe, and you'll then have to watch Stan eat this abomination he eats with eggs there. So
what is it?
It's some sort of eggs Benedict, but with like huevos rancheros thrown on top of it and everything. It's glorious.
Yeah, like I remember a long time ago, I knew this girl, and this is in San Diego, and she like was gaga for this dish called California Benny, which is like eggs Benedict but different. I think it had avocado or something in it, and I was just like, well, whatever. I mean, she didn't begrudge me my my bacon, scrambled eggs, and whatever I had. So I was just like, all right, you eat what you want, just keep it on your plate.
This place does have the best biscuits and gravy around. It's a toss up though between Echo Lake Cafe and Shield Arms, who has the best biscuits and gravy. So
I'm there for the biscuits and the gravy though. So all right. Let's move on, shall we? Next story. South Korea installs platform to monitor Chinese president's disputed sea. So China puts in some metal platform near an island and won't let Korea inspect it. So Korea makes a platform next to their platform so they can inspect it. I mean, you got to love it.
If only there was ever a historic precedent for the South Koreans and the Chinese to fight.
Yeah. South Korea set up a reciprocal platform in a disputed area of the Yellow Sea known in Seoul as the West Sea. Yeah. So in Korea, we have the East Sea and the West Sea. I told my Korean friends a long time ago, I was like, listen, if you called the East Sea the Sea of Korea and then we would have called it the Sea of Korea because we are so invested in Korea, we would have done that. Whereas we all call it the Sea of Japan because Japan calls it the Sea of Japan. So, I mean, I told him it's a problem in marketing, east of what? China says the structures are fish farming equipment, but they have raised alarm bells in Seoul over concerns Beijing could be seeking to stake claims on a provisional maritime zone where the two countries' exclusive economic zones overlap. Let's see. Minister Kang told Parliament that South Korea is monitoring the Chinese president by setting up a stationary floating platform for environmental survey. South Korea has taken reciprocal measures with large-scale floating objects. With a large-scale floating object in February, a South Korean research vessel sent to examine the Chinese structures was blocked by the Chinese Coast Guard and a rubber boat carrying civilians, according to South Korean media reports. The South Korean Coast Guard also deployed and was involved in a 2-hour standoff before retreating. The report said. Now, Joe, it's interesting. We've seen this China Coast Guard versus, the Philippines. And the Philippines, let's be honest, they haven't been bringing a lot of heat to that fight. Now, they've been bringing a lot of spirit, but not heat, right? There's a lot of heat in the South Korean, both Navy and Coast Guard. So this could be very interesting.
It could, and it's an area that's had its share of clashes before. I mean, relatively recently, we had a fairly epic sea battle between North and South Korea. So both sides are very invested in that particular body of water. So.
Yeah, it's and Korea does they're pretty good at the whole standoff with other countries over contested areas. Famously, the Dokdo Island with Japan, where they basically caused a long-term, I guess you could say, frozen conflict with Japan over these islands. I can't remember what the Tamashiki or something like that island is what the Japanese called it. The West for a long time called it the Leoncoeur Rocks, but Dokdo is I think the Koreans actually have a base on that island now. So I think possession is 9/10 of the law. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. In a statement on Wednesday, a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Seoul said some of the reports about the structures were not factual and they do not violate any agreements. The fact is that relevant facilities set up by Chinese are deep-sea fishery aquaculture facilities located in China's coastal waters, which are China's reasonable use of offshore marine resources. Joe, they seem like they want to be able to reasonably use everybody's offshore marine resources.
Well, I kind of think that's the way, right? It's kind of their thing. They love creating these artificial islands and just kind of expanding their borders and then saying, oh, look, hey, we've had this building here for a while. It's now ours. And that's where our new border is. It's interesting philosophy of international relations.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how this ends up kind of working out. It's clearly one of those developing type of situations, but I don't know where it's going to go. I doubt the interesting thing here is that there's a kind of a political contest coming up in the near future here in Korea. And so you could get some very bellicose language coming out in order to appeal to voters. Left, right, or center, Koreans are pretty nationalistic. So anything that challenges Korean national sovereignty is viewed very dimly by the Korean people. And this goes to show with the Korean political response here, where you've got essentially both parties, the left wing and the right wing party, are pretty.
Korea has a pretty long history of being invaded by both China and Japan for thousands of years. So they're understandably a little standoffish about Chinese and Japanese encroachment.
Yeah.
And
all right.
On that note, the North Koreans are real nervous about that body of water anyway, ever since a whole bunch of Marines came out at Incheon one time. So
right. They just showed up out of nowhere. All right, let's move on. This was something. So this is kind of easing us into our domestic topics for the day. And Cannon, I'm going to be curious to hear what you think about this. Not today, Satan. Ex-FBI agent finds possible ATF honeypot website operation selling Glock switches. Let's see. He's a whistleblower called Kyle Seraphin. He's has uncovered a fake Polymer 80 website selling illegal Glock switches, devices that convert pistols to machine guns. He describes it as a likely honeypot operation set up by the ATF. Have you ever wanted to buy an illegal machine gun directly from at ATF HQ? Seraphin wrote on X. All right, let's go around the horn. Cannon, these Glock switches have been fucking everywhere in the gun scene, especially in the urban gun scene. What's your kind of take on them? I mean, I don't see ATF knocking down a whole lot of, doors in Chicago and things like this where you're seeing these things show up. What's your thoughts?
First off, I like Kyle. Me and Kyle follow each other on X. Kyle's a cool guy.
Yeah.
The funny part is that the ATF got certain task force. I have a friend who was on the ATF task force, and he's local law enforcement here, but they'll outsource the local law enforcement for these task force, and they crack down here in Maryland on P80s and switches. They are now, as far as the switch is concerned, I want one. I just want one for a novelty. However, it's a pain in the ass here because every kid with a Glock in Maryland has one. They're out here recklessly firing them all around, and it's annoying. However, I do believe what Kyle is saying. I said this a couple of years ago when I would see these quote unquote ads on Twitter and on Facebook advertising these switches. It'll be some yo boy or whatever, or some white guy acting like he's from the hood, saying that he can get these switches for like, I don't know, $40. Like $40, I can get you a switch. DM me for details. And I'm like,
yeah.
If anybody DMs this guy, they're stupid. He's clearly a Fed. And
yeah.
And we've heard certain instances. I know I heard around here in Maryland or here in Baltimore that a couple of guys got caught like that, where they DM some guy for a switch and they end up getting raided or arrested. So yeah, I completely believe it. I completely believe it with the switches. Now, as far as I guess having them goes, I mean, if you're a law-abiding citizen and you can pass a background check to get your gun, then why not? But at the same time, it's a plague on the streets right now. I'm just gonna put that out there. It's definitely a plague on the streets. These kids, they're 3D printing them and everything now. So they're even bypassing like the quote unquote plug to get them and just making them themselves.
Yeah, Joe, I'd like to get your kind of take on it too, because that's definitely, it's definitely one of the things that's out there, and it's clearly not being enforced equally.
No, it's not. And these types of honeypot operations are not new. There was another one with a drop-in sear disconnect that was being sold as a key rack. And when you did all the digging into the IP address, it came out directly adjacent to the Miami FBI office. So you got to really be careful on buying these things online. Always in cash and never in writing is not a bad not a bad way to go. But look, man, buying a Glock switch, first of all, is just the silliest thing on the planet, because by the time that you're on the last round in your magazine, that round is going almost straight up in the air. And you can pull the trigger and make accurate shots almost as fast as this thing. So don't fall for the easy honeypots. They're always out there. By the way, Polymer 80 went bankrupt like 2 years ago. So when you see a new site that pops up with a bankrupt company selling sketchy items, just don't do it.
Right. 3D printer go burr. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, these kids are making their stuff now. But yeah, you're right. P80 went under once they started making them put serial numbers on all of their stuff. It defeated their whole business model. Not to mention lawsuits and stuff like that. The government basically put them out of business.
Somebody else pointed out that the $160 fee they're charging on here is about 5 times what it would cost you to go buy one outside a convenience store. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, the irony is that my understanding is that these switches are almost 100% polymer products, right? I mean, there's no metal in these at all. So it's something you could absolutely just make with a 3D printer. Why would you ever, when you can make one with a 3D printer, why would you ever go out and and buy
Well,
one from some.
Hold on a second here. Why would you? Because remember the target audience here. Because lazy.
I know, but my point is that most of the people that are getting them, like Joe said, they're getting them from a guy hanging out in the parking lot of the fucking Circle K, because that guy's not lazy. He printed a bunch of them for $1 a piece or less, probably, and he's selling them for I don't know. I have no idea what the street price on these things are, but it's got to be low.
Hold on,
The kids,
I have
kids here in Baltimore, they're buying them for like, I think they're buying them for like $200. They paying,
Real quick,
they're paying.
I have to point out I got caught.
I know with the knife on there. I was like, why on earth would I want that knife? It does. It's a really odd design. But that's funny.
It's a knife with it's got all of the things so you can do the forward assist on it.
Oh, it looked like a forward assist. Rick mentions oil cans for suppressors too. Listen, if you guys go to a gun show, I'm going to give you a pro tip here, okay? If you go to the gun show and there's a guy selling oil cans or a guy selling Glock switches, that's the ATF. Don't do it.
Yes.
Go somewhere else. Don't even stop at the booth. Walk right on by. It's just absolutely silly.
100%.
Let me point out that in Montana, with the Montana Gun Owner Protections Act, gun shows in Montana are like the Wild West. You can buy literally anything, long as it's in Montana and its intent is to stay in Montana. The rules are pretty much out the window.
So you're telling me I should just have my own gun locker there at the camp, and then that way I can.
We have gun lockers for that purpose.
Or do I need a Montana driver's license?
I know of at least one person who's probably in the chat today who intends to have a Montana gun locker, but we'll just leave that there.
Yeah, it's
Like
smart people.
I tell a friend of mine, I'm just I saw like they on Instagram, and I was just doom scrolling Instagram, and a picture of her Glock with a switch on it and her cup holder. I had to hit her up like, "Hey, yo, take that shit off your Instagram." She was like, "What's the problem?" I said, "Yo, you're not even supposed to have that. They see that on your Instagram, you will get paid a visit." I'm letting you know. I was like, people just do it for the lifestyle. They do it for the lifestyle. They do it because they want to say they got one. You can buy them for people right outside, but here in Baltimore, these kids paying like $200 for these switches.
Wow. I mean, I'm not going to say that I know anybody with high-end 3D printers that could probably use some money, but I'm sure there are people out there like that. And, people that don't have any respect for these gun regulations, these are the kind of people who would probably be a target audience for making these. And then,
here on the Council on Future Conflict, we believe that the federal government enacts gun laws for our benefit, and we should all follow them.
Well, they do know what's best, Joe. And we're going to be talking about the government knowing a lot better than us for this program. There's a lot of stuff to dive into that. But before we do, let's talk about tactical-wisdom.com. Joe, I bet that there is a Tactical Wisdom article in these Glock switches, kind of as a, beware.
A Tactical Wisdom what?
I could see an article from Tactical Wisdom about along this topic. Like,
Tactical Wisdom is don't buy from obvious feds. It's really simple. Anyway, we've got some classes listed up there. Next weekend, we're doing a whole weekend of self-defense here. Saturday, we're doing unarmed defense and ground fighting. And on Sunday, we will do sticks and knives. And it's going to be a good time. I've got at least one person renting a room and staying for the weekend. Get some more. We've got a lot of local interest in it, too. Our friends at Shield Arms are pretty excited to post the info for us. So that's pretty awesome. And we are really, though, gearing up. We're going to run a field craft course in April as well, but we're really gearing up for the big week when NC Scout is out here, and I'm pretty sure that Kay from Combat Study Group is coming, and I just heard from Kay's dad that he may come out with some cloaks for that week and have them available while folks are here. We're going to run the RTO course May 16th through the 18th. Then the SIGINT course the 19th to the 21st. The 21st and 22nd, we're doing night fighting where you can get out and move with your nods and shoot with your nods. And then the 23rd through the 25th, I'm going to run community security ops. So we've got a whole week of training with NC Scout and I right here at Camp Ponderosa. We're going to have some fun stuff. And then our other big event after that is going to be in July with Shield Field Days. We did it last year. It's going to be Shield Field Days sponsored by the Council on Future Conflict. We'll do some live shows from here. I know Mexican Iron Man is going to be joining us and Angry American.
Oh, very cool.
And I'm hoping we'll get some more. Actually, Mexican Iron Kid may be coming out with Mexican Iron Man. We will see. It's going to be a really, really good time. We're going to have a lot of fun events, lots of classes, lots of people coming out there. Exumbers Designs will be here with all their cool stuff. I know Scott went over and Watcher went over and handled every single item on his table. I think we all came away with some more Exumbers gear that weekend. I actually just found the patch he gave me that weekend here on a desk about the grill, Tactical Grill Master patch. But
he said he would be interested in potentially sponsoring the channel, and if I could only figure out a way to like make that happen, I just got to close that deal. So
yeah, Eric's a good dude.
It's hard to do from this side of the country, this side of the globe. So
and you can meet Father Abraham there too if you're coming out. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. That's going to be a great event. I'm really sorry I won't be able to make it for that one, but hey, you can't be everywhere. All right, let's jump into our main topic for today.
Hold on, that means though that Watcher has to do the cartwheel if you're not going to be there.
That's right. And I know Watcher can do a cartwheel.
I know. Anyway, carry on.
For whatever reason, the post millennial is taking a while to open on my computer, but I know that that Watcher has the link. So let's talk about our first story here. Breaking: man arrested for targeted attack at Las Vegas Tesla Center. Now, here's the irony, Joe, is we saw basically 4 years of do whatever the fuck you want. You might get held, but you won't even get prosecuted, much less actually convicted of anything. And so they're continuing to operate under those rules that we're seeing that law enforcement is kind of stepping up. It actually identifying and going after some of these people. Now, Joe, you have to be the dumbest person in the world to think that, I could do something to a Tesla and there's not going to be 1,000 cameras filming me while I do it.
Right. And all these videos are coming out of these idiots not realizing exactly that. So,
Cannon, I mean, what's in your neck of the woods? What have you seen of this? Have you seen any of this stuff in person, or has it been local to you guys, or how's this kind of reflecting there?
It's non-existent here, generally because most normies, not normies, but most people with common sense realize that these Teslas that they're firebombing and vandalizing don't belong to Elon Musk. They belong to regular, everyday people that bought the car. So people aren't really messing with them like that. Now look at the guy I just showed that got arrested. He looked like he drinks his own pee. He eats watermelon with feta cheese on it. Like, he just looks like the type of guy that would get really triggered by finding out that his government's been effing him for the last decade, 4 decades. You know what I mean?
Well,
but here, it's non-existent. The thing that pisses me off is that, like, for example, that firebombing of that Tesla dealership or whatever it was in Vegas, those cars don't belong to Elon. They belong to the guy that owns the Tesla dealership.
The dealership, right.
So now you just killed this man's way of living by sitting there and exploding these cars. 2, they got lithium batteries. We already know they're not good for the environment. So when them lithium batteries start smoking and it takes forever to put the fire out, people breathing that shit in is going to make them all sick and all that other stuff. Not to mention if that lithium starts to leak into the soil or into the water, we got another problem. It's just, to me, it pisses me off because I'm just sitting there like, you guys are sitting there have this visceral reaction to nothing, to nothing because the news and a couple of congressmen and women who got their hands caught in the cookie jar told you to be upset.
Yeah, it's this is pretty crazy. And if you look at the guy, if you scroll up, Watcher, on this story, and you can see the picture of this guy. No, scroll. That's scrolling down. Scroll up. There you go. Yeah, this about as soy a Korean as I've ever seen in my entire life.
How is that not Andy No just wearing a beard?
That is, in fact, Paul Kim, 36. He was arrested on Wednesday and was charged with arson as well as possession of an explosive device. Police said the Molotov cocktail were used in order to set fire to several Teslas at the center in Las Vegas. The attack happened on March 18th. By the way, Watcher, we've got video of that attack and the link under this story in the show notes. During the news conference last week, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said he used what appeared to be multiple Molotov cocktails and firearms to conduct his act. In addition to the cars being lit on fire, the word resist was spray painted on the Tesla Center's doors. Police also believe Kim shot guns into the Tesla vehicles during the attack. Police told reporters that they received reports of around 2:45 a.m. that someone was setting cars on fire at the Tesla Collision Center near Jones Boulevard in Badura Avenue. Hey, Joe, I mean, so you have mentioned in the past, like, I don't think that these people are just weak, right? I mean, these guys are armed. These guys are clearly ready to do at least property damage.
They're committed. Yeah,
and if a security guy had come out there and said, "Hey, you guys," they probably would have shot him and killed him.
They probably would have because they believe that strongly. You have to understand that fanaticism has a power all of its own, right? We learned this the hard way in Afghanistan and Iraq, right? If they're willing to die for their cause, they're certainly willing to kill you. And it's pretty interesting. There was another video that came out 2 days ago of yet another person. There's been at least 2 incidences where someone cuts someone off in traffic, stops them, and then gets out of the car and approaches them. That's going to lead to one of those people getting shot. This last one, the guy slammed on his brakes and jumped out with his phone in his hand, pointing it at him. And I pointed out that, I tell you what, if you jump out of your car with something in your hand, you're going to end up on the news in front of me.
Especially if it's black and it's very hard to, I mean, Cannon, what happens to you? Somebody points of something black, out the window of their car at you or something like that. What's going to happen?
I'm going to have a couple of 9mm rounds in my windshield.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Well, when I said that you're going to end up on a news, another dude said, no, you're going to end up on a T-shirt, which is actually pretty accurate. But
I mean, it is right. I mean, I had my aunt, victim of road rage. She cut somebody off mistakenly, and the guy pulled up next to him and started shooting into her car.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's ain't nothing to mess with. So if you get out the car, if I cut you off by mistake or something or whatever, or I honk my horn at you because you cut me off, and you get out pointing your phone at me like it's a pistol, I'm going home. I'm gonna have to take you out. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, after the fact, what they gonna say? Well, it was a phone. Well, I didn't know that at the time. I'm sorry. He pointed it at me. I thought it was done. I feared for my life. And now he's no longer with us before he's supposed to be no longer with us.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you can't kind of, Monday morning quarterback this whole thing. When people fear for their lives and they're armed, they should act responsibly, which means to protect themselves. And that's the outcome. Rowan Cork says, guy was carrying an SBR, Strybog, PCC, and Molotovs. What do you bet, Joe, that he didn't have a tax stamp for that?
I'm betting he probably didn't. But I think I'm going to agree with him on that and on that alone, that tax stamps are stupid. It's just a way to make you pay money to exercise your rights.
But the question is whether
Strybog is a great gun. Fantastic gun. I have one or had one. Great gun.
Yeah, actually, there's some speaking of positive gun stuff, there's some legislation that's actually getting a large amount of support right now that would both do away with the what's the law? The machine gun and NFA, the NFA, and there's another one that gets rid of the ATF. So Congress, there's members of Congress that are actually
that's never going to happen because
I got it. But my point is, at least the fact is that 20 years ago that would have been unthinkable. And now you actually have people.
The ATF, OSHA would require everyone to have a silencer, and I'm behind that 100%.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. In addition to these violent attacks, there have been protests at Republican town hall meetings, at times organized by left-wing activist groups, and have been critical of cuts in spending that DOJ has been carrying out in coordination with the Trump administration officials. And so this is just kind of setting the stage for what we've got committed leftists who are now so outraged that they're willing to act out. And now, granted, Joe, this is generally not what you would call classically organized. It's more like kind of putting the information out there in an organized way that so that individuals feel that they should either respond or so it's kind of distributed versus centrally controlled, but still it's very effective.
Although tomorrow there are nationally organized protests planned all over the country at Tesla dealerships and charging stations. And you need to be aware of that these things are actually highly organized and may even be funded. But on an interesting side note, myself and a couple of associates were doing a preliminary site assessment at a Tesla supercharger location. And we saw the local police pull up, spend about 5 minutes sitting in front of it and taking notes and then driving off. So it's actually good to see local law enforcement paying attention to these locations, because normally they would say, well, that's private industry's problem. It's not really our problem until something happens. But it was good to see a local police department, although it was in very rural Montana. So that's not typical.
I was going to say probably the exception, not the rule, right?
This is what I don't get. For years and years and years, at least since I've been, coherent, 5 years old or whatever, people have been talking about the system is against us. The system is against us. We got to dismantle the system. Here comes Trump. He's starting to dismantle the system. He's shrinking government. He's exposing the corruption and the malfeasance and the laundering of money. And then here those same people that was trying to rage against the machine go, don't touch my government. I don't understand that. I don't get it. I don't know what they're out here rioting and setting stuff on fire for. He just showed us why we're not getting Social Security when I turn 65. But I'm still paying into that system. He just showed us that U.S. aid ain't aiding shit. He just showed us. He's showing us all of this corruption. He's showing it to us, and people, instead of, questioning, okay, well, dang, that's crazy. Maybe I don't like Trump too much, or maybe I don't like Elon so much, but you got to answer to this government. Instead of doing that, no, they sit there. They're being useful idiots and willfully ignorant. And sitting here, running out here and just being reckless and just messing with people's lives simply because Orange Man bad. I really don't get it.
Yeah. Well, it's like I understand how people may not like a policy, or there's a lot of people that are losing their jobs. They're just federal workers that are not kind of. They're just doing what they're told. They're like, hey, I'm a paper pusher. I'm pushing the paper. I'm doing it the way they taught me, blah, blah, blah. I get it. That person loses his job. He's pissed off. And I understand that. But ultimately, that doesn't mean that they have the right to just completely go nuclear.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's your job. And I was talking to some cousins of mine because a couple of them actually got reinstated. But they had lost they got laid off, or they got fired from the government, and they were all upset. And they go, "See, Elon fired me." I'm like, "Elon didn't fire you. Your manager did." I said, "Just like any other company, From the top, it comes down and says, hey, we need to let go a certain amount of people. So then it trickles down to your manager, and your manager got to figure out who they want to keep or who they want to let go. And your manager decided that you were expendable. You know, and I said it's unfortunate, but that's how the world works. Your job is not a right. Your job is a privilege of having that job. You know, and sometimes things don't go right. It happens in corporate America. It happens in you know, on job sites. It happens all the time. I mean, for you to sit there and think that your job is going to be forever, because they have this mantra that it's hard to get fired from the federal government. Like, it shouldn't be hard. If you ain't doing your job, then you should be fired. Also, you shouldn't have 6 other agencies doing the same job as one agency. There's too much redundancy in the government.
So the irony is that for every guy who's just kind of doing his thing and just, hey, I was told about this opportunity, I got this job, I worked hard, and now I'm getting, you know, canned over, like, for what? For every guy like that, there's 5 federal workers who are like, you know how hard it is for them to fire a federal worker? I ain't going nowhere. Like, this is like I'm retired on, you know, and working full time at the, you know what I mean? It's like there are a lot of, you know, I ain't doing that shit. It ain't in my PD. I'm not staying 1 minute past to help you guys do the work that you're doing. I'm out of here. I mean, so there are a lot of federal workers that I've experienced that are like that, because they don't give 2 shits about anything other than that paycheck, and they don't have to work hard to get it. They could do a shitty job and they still get the paycheck. Yeah, retired on active duty. I won't say that I know somebody who is kind of like that right now, but I know somebody that's kind of like that. Peter Shea Helicopter Tour for $2 says, if they're worth their salt, they'll be fine in the private sector. Don't be a parasite. Yeah, I totally agree with this. And this has kind of been my argument to those people that I've encountered that are saying, well, like, what am I supposed to do? And, you know, like, I was talking to a medical guy the other day. I was like, listen, they may be doing you a favor if they were to give you the adios, because, you know, you could probably do way better in the private sector, you know. Peter States Helicopter Tour again for $2 says, feds who claim to be public servants while collectively bargaining against the people they claim to serve. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how many federal workers have any visibility on all the federal unions and stuff. At least the ones that I've met in the Department of Defense, you don't really see that a whole lot for what we do. I'm not saying that they don't do it. I'm just saying it just doesn't come up very much.
Watch out for tomorrow, because they're talking about all of these protests. I guarantee somebody's paying for these protests. Somebody's paying for these protests. They're not just out there organically going to go to a Tesla charging station or a Tesla dealership, which again has nothing to do with Elon and everything to do with some business owner that decided to open up a dealership. But I'm feeling that there's going to be a bunch of paid agitators out there doing some craziness, and it's going to take up the news cycle probably. Like I was saying, that I think this is the new Weather Underground that's happening, but this time this Weather Underground is funded and sponsored.
The irony is that, you know, this is all going to end up being pissing in the wind. If you don't think in the next 4 years that all these federal workers are going back to the house, you're deluding yourself. But we'll talk about some of the reasons why that's been held up here recently. I just real quick before we move on to that, I just wanted to, you know, the resistance ain't bringing their best, whether it's Soy Boy, you know, Kim that firebombed this, or whether it's Canada, who is, you know, presenting Ottawa Premier Doug Ford as their kind of spokesman of rage against the United States. Are you guys looking? This is like the fucking Pillsbury Doughboy getting upset.
You lose me every time you say Doug Ford. But
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like I said, that's why I said the Pillsbury Doughboy.
But I can assure you one thing.
Hold on, I'm not getting audio out of that. Let me see what's going on here.
I heard it.
Yeah, we got audio.
Okay. I don't for some reason, but let me.
Don't worry, you're not missing anything, Watcher.
inflicting pain on the Canadian population. And not, but I can assure you one thing.
Oh, I see what's
We're
going
going
on.
to make sure
Hold on, I can
that we inflict as much pain as possible.
It's a short clip. Just play it, Watcher.
I did. I played the whole clip.
Anyway, the whole he wants to inflict as much pain as possible on the American people, because that we are inflicting pain on the Canadian people. This is him trying to throw a Molotov cocktail across the border into America. But the sad thing is, Joe, when it comes to this trade war, that the wind blowing from the south is going to blow that Molotov cocktail midair right back into Canada and set their industry on fire. This is not something they want to do.
Right. For those asking, it was actually his brother that was a crackhead mayor. This guy did roll into office as the premier of Ontario on name recognition alone. Who do we always vote for, honey? Ford. Check. So get this guy in the office. But
yeah,
anything to the east of Alberta, we don't want anyway. So we're okay. We don't even care. We're in good shape. So I disregard Doug Ford. He matters not to literally anyone.
Well, I hate to say it, but I disregard Canada. I mean, we've got some good friends up in Alberta and some other provinces, but yeah, Canada is not bringing their best.
Well, what's the old saying? This is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me.
It's going to hurt them a lot more than it's going to hurt us. That's 100% true. Anyway, the reason behind a lot of the stuff that's coming out of the Trump administration, I think Canada, are you still can you hear us? Because your video is frozen. I just wanted to make sure. Judge declines Trump administration's request that she recuse herself from the Perkins Coie case. So, if you remember correctly, this is the Perkins Coie LLP, the what is it? I guess they were a law company, and they lost their security clearance. And this is just a perfect example, Joe, of these. They're shopping this stuff. It's going in front of these liberal judges that are all pretty much Biden and Obama appointees. And they're making these just crazy pronouncements and how they're adjudicating this. I don't know how, the impeachment of these judges is not likely to happen. We've talked on the show in the past that there's other ways other than impeachment to get some of these judges out of there. I don't see anybody doing it. What's the way forward in this, Joe? This judicial obstruction.
Perkins Coie, they were part of the whole collusion nonsense.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Perkins Coie was hired by the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign in 2016. According to the presidential action issued by Trump, the firm engaged in dishonest and dangerous activity that affected the United States for decades. And then so the firm sued the administration in federal court, saying that Trump's actions violated their rights under the Constitution.
Perkins Coie committed treason.
That's kind of the way I look at it.
Just like they want you to believe there's only one judge who can hear any case involving Donald Trump, they want you to believe there's only one law firm that can represent the Democratic agenda anywhere. So.
Let's see. The court has not kept its disdain for President Trump's secret. Chad Mizell, acting Associate Attorney General for the DOJ, wrote in a motion seeking her disqualification. It has voiced its thoughts loudly, both inside and outside the courtroom. Lance Corporal veteran for $10. Canada was founded without struggle or cost for the consequences of ideology, so they have the tendency to skip the process and become successful with radicalism of radical ideas. So Canada is in the same position that Europe's in. Canada, in my view, is just another European country that just happens to be dislocated from Europe. They've
Yeah,
got
he
that.
answered to the Queen, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, they're part of the Commonwealth. Their head of state technically is, well, it's not the Queen anymore, but is the monarch of England. And
Governor General.
what's that?
The Governor General actually rules Canada, despite what the Canadians would have you believe. So,
yeah. And he's appointed by
the King.
The King, right? Yeah. So, so anyway, yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know what fucking Canada's thinking. The Queen was still accurate.
It was not. The Canadians didn't burn the White House. It was actually a British expeditionary force that burned the White House.
Yeah, but they came from Canada, right?
Yeah. But we got them back after the Revolutionary War with the Fenian raids by Irish Americans into Canada. So
the judge
came out as a wash in the end.
So this is interesting. All the stuff that's coming out about this. Speaking inside the court, Mizell pointed to the now former special counsel Jack Smith prosecution of Trump, during which he said that Howell found reason to believe the former president would flee from prosecution. Absolutely stupid. This is the actual public comments that this judge had made. So these are all very good reasons why they shouldn't be able to rule on this. The judge also pierced attorney-client privilege, ordering President Trump's attorney to testify before a D.C. grand jury investigating his alleged retention of classified documents in the Southern Florida case. Let's see. The strategy is designed to impugn the integrity of the federal judicial system and blame any loss of decision-making rather than fallacies of the subversive legal arguments presented. This is what Howell wrote in response to the DOJ. And the judge said she welcomed the Trump's administration's opportunity to set the record straight because facts matter. Every litigating party deserves a fair and impartial hearing to determine. Yeah, but the problem is when the judge is just inherently biased, there's no way you can get a fair and impartial hearing.
That's correct.
Now, if the judge has a bias, but nobody knows about it, then you have to assume that the judge will give you a fair and impartial hearing. If anything, that may be evidence that they can be fair and impartial. Because listen, despite whatever personal reservations they have, they've been kind of, balls and strikes on these issues, right? This is just not the case with this judge, and there's no way in hell she can give them a fair hearing.
I completely agree with that. But that's
this is across the board. That one male judge, the guy who gets all these fucking cases, and he's like, oh no, he can't fire these people. He can't do this. He can't do that. Transgender have to stay in the military. These people are out of their fucking minds.
But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of it. They want to stack the deck, just like they did in New York with the hush money trial. It's just that whole nobody's above the law thing don't apply to them. This judge clearly she has a bias against Trump, and she's being bought and paid for it. As simple as that.
Well, there are some sane judges out there, because we've got this next story. Appeals court halts judge's order requiring Musk to hand over Doge records. A federal appeals court has temporarily blocked a discovery order from the U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, who would have required Elon Musk and Doge to turn over documents and respond to written questions about their role in advising cuts in certain parts of the federal government. In a ruling issued on March 26th, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit Court granted an emergency stay of Chutkan's March 12th order, which had largely granted limited expedited discovery to a coalition of 13 Democrat-led states, requiring Musk and Doge to produce documents and respond to their questions within 21 days. The appeals court that Musk and Doge had satisfied the stringent requirements for a stay and showed that they are likely to prevail in their claim that the lower court must resolve the motion to dismiss before allowing discovery to proceed. In particular, petitions have shown a likelihood of success on their argument that the district court was required to decide their motion to dismiss before allowing the discovery. This is why I wish these are one of these kind of things where I wish I had a lawyer to tell me exactly what I'm reading here, but I think I get it. The case brought by New Mexico and a coalition of 12 Democratic-led states challenged the legality of Joe's sweeping cost-cutting efforts. So what they're saying is that DOGE doesn't have the right to advise the executive on how to cut government spending. That's what they're saying.
Why not? It's just advising. It's not. They're not making law. They're just saying, "Hey, we feel like you should probably do this going forward." And Trump or the rest of the executive branch can, take that with a grain of salt, or they can implement it. It's up to them. But all they're doing is just giving them a recommendation. What's the problem with that?
Well, like a great example was within the Department of Defense when they started doing the 5 question, the email, tell us 5 things that you did. The Department of Defense basically said, no, don't do that. Don't listen to that. You only respond to us. You don't respond to agencies outside the Department of Defense. And then the SecDef decided, well, I think I'm going to have all the civilians in the Department of Defense do this. And so then it came down as a legitimate order and they did it. So, I mean, Pa Grunt for $10 says, how is a security clearance a right? People lose them all the time for far less. In my humble opinion, those like Swalwell and others caught with spies should be stripped. Yeah, well, good news is Swalwell, as part of the that January 6th committee, I think was he's out of the government now. He's not in Congress anymore, right? Or is he still in?
He's still in.
Oh, okay.
He was still in.
Oh, hey, Jim Satala for $20 here says, actually $19.99, but yeah, I'll give you credit for the penny. Twitter is confirming reports that AG is dropping suppressor cases, also hearing rumblings that she's going to do amnesty and open ATF registry for 12 months to increase the numbers in common use for lawful purposes. Joe, I mean, that's actually that would be a pretty good move, I think. I mean, it's not getting rid of the NFA, it's not getting rid of the ATF, but it's practically opening up. It's kind of like when Colorado, after that judge stopped the ban on high-capacity magazines, and everybody ran, like every high-capacity magazine in the country was getting shipped to Colorado for that, like 30 days or whatever it was that people were able to buy those. I mean, that would be good news, right?
It would if it actually holds up and happens, right?
Right.
So.
I'm sorry. I hate to be the party pooper here, but
I don't know, man. I mean,
I kind of agree.
I don't know. I'm trying. I can't live in a constant fog of negativity. I'm looking for the silver lining. Now, I know that I need to be patient and not get super excited. But then again, I never get super excited, so I just get a little excited.
What did they mean by amnesty? Saying, "Hey guys, we're going to give you amnesty if you come in and register your guns." Is that what they're saying?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think
yes,
that
that's what's being said.
I think if they're doing amnesty for people who own NFA items who haven't registered them, that would be that. But then open the NFA registry for 12 months would basically give everybody a drop-in auto sear, because you would have a guy make 1 million drop-in auto sears, and they would go to the real price of $25 versus, $25,000.
Problem is, you still have to register it all.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's
right. And this is not getting rid of the NFA, which is what we all want. We want to get rid of the NFA. We want to, abolish the ATF. We want to get rid of the Hughes Amendment. There are several things that all of us want to do, but it's kind of like beggars can't be choosers sometimes. And, do you look the gift horse in the mouth or you don't? If you would never register a firearm as an NFA item, then it makes sense why,
I think the founding fathers were very, very clear when they passed the Bill of Rights shall not be infringed.
So if they did this, then you would not register any items under that.
No, unless I'm getting.
I decline to answer on a stream that's going to exist on the internet.
Yeah, I plead the fifth.
Counselor.
I mean, of course I would. Of course I would. I would register my suppressor. If I go buy one from Silence Co.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm in the position of I've got plans to get NFA items, so it's kind of like I don't mind, because if I can not pay the $200 tax stamp and not have to pay exorbitant prices, then
I'm all about freedom, but I'm going to go ahead and register all of my freedom with them so that they can take it away when they want.
Brother, I have a TS. They can take away my freedom anytime they want.
Cool.
I'm
Not
just saying.
Supposed to be that way.
I agree with you. I'm just saying.
Not involving your freedom being taken away.
I'm trying to live in the world to deal with the world I live in, not the one I want to live in. All right, let me move on.
Do things and no one knows. You can just do things.
Anyway, let me continue on with this. Chutkan partly sided with the Democratic-led states on March 12th, ordering Musk and Doge and related entities to turn over documents about firing federal workers. She also required Doge to identify anybody who's led or worked at the agency since President Trump took office, and list all agencies where Doge and Musk canceled contracts, cut grants, or terminated employees. Trump and Musk have both said that Doge has been assisting various agencies that have fired or offered buyouts. Musk is a special government employee, so he is an employee, but not the type that would. Excuse me. Let's see. Let me just finish reading the sentence there. He is a special government employee and has been tasked by Trump to lead Doge and help fulfill his campaign pledge to reduce waste, streamlining federal operations, and cutting red tape. It's interesting how quickly Doge very quickly responded to this and was able to get this appeal. So clearly, Doge has decent lawyers, and they probably have good connections inside the Department of Justice. It's almost like maybe if you guys don't help us out, we'll recommend the president cut all your jobs. I don't know. That sounds fun to me. I like the idea of the Department of Justice getting pared down a little bit.
I like the fact of all of them getting pared down just a tad bit.
Amen, brother. I think you could legitimately get rid of 80% of the government, and nobody would ever notice because they're not essential.
No, they're not. I mean, every state should operate as its own little independent country, and we should only depend on the federal government for existential threats and certain foreign policy. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Fortunately, a lot of those people that got fired got those jobs because the Biden administration created those jobs solely to make the jobs numbers look good, not out of necessity. And they're starting to find that out. And unfortunately, these people are losing their jobs. Doge isn't doing anything criminal. I had on my channel a week ago. I showed Obama and Biden had the same type of task force. It was called the Campaign to Cut Waste. In 2011, they did a whole YouTube video on it. It was basically Doge in 2011. And then you had Clinton and Gore do the same thing in the 90s. So what changed? What's different? Is it the fact that neither one of them acted on it and Trump actually acted on it? Is that the problem?
Yeah, that's it. It was always performative. It was always people just kind of LARPing as somebody who cares about government spending. Now that you got a guy who actually wants to cut government spending, and all of a sudden it's like, what? So yeah, but here's the other thing too. It's like when you start applying good business practices to the federal government, all of a sudden it just naturally gets a lot better. But so it kind of goes to show that it's not even just like the things that we don't think that the government should be spending money on. It's like literally they don't know how to do financial anything. It's like they don't know how to do business. I recommend again. It came out last weekend that that interview with Howard Lutnick. He really breaks it down, like the things the federal government are doing and how you could just easily cut huge amounts of federal spending without significant impacts to almost anybody. But speaking of significant impacts, that's kind of what our next segment's about, gentlemen. So if you would allow me to, I would like to move on to segment 2. Bad before it's good, meaning the economy is going to get bad before it gets better. And if you want to know why, I mean, just how broken the government is, right? This is a video clip that both me and Watcher found independently, and we thought this is like we got to find a place to put this into the show. And I want to hang my hat for this segment on this clip because it's that good. Now everybody knows Jon Stewart, big lefty. You know, he's been carrying water for every left-wing administration and politician since I don't know when. He tries to make jokes from time to time to make him sound reasonable, but in reality, he's been just as unreasonable as any of the rest of them. And the sad thing is, and Joe, this is the way it is for a lot of people who only just get to know surface and emotional kind of talking points. They never dive into the issues and understand how things work. And so this is Jon Stewart learning about rural broadband and how just fucking broken the whole system is.
We have to issue the notice of funding opportunity within 180 days.
Now, this is a long video. It's like 5 minutes, but so feel free to pause and make comments during the middle. But when I watched it, I couldn't believe 5 minutes went by that fast because it was so telling. Go ahead.
Step 2, which all 56 state applicants completed, is states who want to participate must submit a letter of intent. After they do that, they can submit a request for up to $5 million in planning grants. Then the NTIA, step 4, has to review and approve and award, again, planning grants, not broadband grants, planning grants.
And it's still at the NTIA. It's still at the first step.
All right, so the NTIA must issue a NOFA within 180 days. States who want to participate must submit their letter of intent. Step 3, they can request up to $5 million in planning grants.
Just planning.
Push pause real quick. Push pause real quick. NTIA, by the way, is National Telecommunications and Information Administration. It's a bureau within the Department of Commerce that advises the president on telecommunication policies and works to expand broadband access.
Which page of the Constitution authorizes that?
Page 0 because it ain't in there.
Okay, gotcha.
Are reviewed, approved, and awarded by the NTIA, which currently all 56, 3 years later, all 56 applicants had passed through at least step 5. It took more than 3 years. So it's a long time. States must submit a 5-year action plan. So the states kind of go back and they kind of think about how they're going to do this. And they don't just say, okay, thank you for the money. We're going to spend it. And you can see how it worked out later. We're like, here's our 5-year action plan. Then the FCC must publish the broadband data maps before NTIA allocates funds. So having done the NOFO, the letters of intent, the request for planning grants, then the review, approval, and awarding of the planning grants, then the 5-year action plans. In between that, the federal government has to put forward a map saying where it thinks we need rural broadband subsidies. And then, of course, the states need an opportunity to challenge the map for accuracy. And you can imagine this doesn't all happen in like a day. Okay, so then the NTIA, step 7, has to use the FCC maps to make allocation decisions. Then, having already done their letter of intent, their request for planning grants, it's hard even to talk about this, man. Step 7 is NTIA must use the FCC maps that were already challenged for allocation decisions. Then, having submitted all this, I think this one is actually quite amazing.
Yeah.
Having submitted their 5-year plans or letters of intent, step 8 is states must submit an initial proposal to the NTIA. Then,
is that the result of their $5 million planning fund? This
I
initial
assume,
proposal?
but then what was the 5-year plan?
And what the fuck did they apply for? What was their NOFO?
Like, if the 5-year action plan isn't the initial proposal, then what's the 5-year action
Forget
plan?
NOFO.
Okay.
MOFO.
Step 9,
Pause that for a second.
NTIA must
Pause.
First of all, these guys are like giddy about the levels of government red tape and permission that has to be granted to do things. They're just mad because it's not their way. Second of all, can you imagine Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and George Washington listening to this? They'd be like, y'all let them do what? Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
in their defense, I'll say that at the very end, they point out that this is their side that put this in place for their own bill. So,
it's essentially self-inflicted.
review and approve each state's, again, initial proposal. By my read, we have had at least 2 initial proposals here, but that's a different issue.
Oh my God.
Step 10, states must publish their own map and allow internal challenges to their own map. So the government has published a map. They have invited the states to challenge the map. Then states have submitted initial proposals, and they then have to publish their own map and allow challenges.
Wait, who's challenging it within the state?
Well, organized interest groups, environmental group, like I don't know who specifically, but literally anybody. This is,
right.
I want to say something because it's very important I say this. This is the Biden administration's process for its own bill. They wanted this to happen. This is how liberal government works now.
This is something they instituted for this bill.
For their bill. This is a bill passed by Democrats with a regulatory structure written by Democratic administration. Okay.
Right.
Step 11. The NTIA must review and improve the challenge results and the final map. So the NTIA has put forward a map. The states have challenged that map. Then the states have put forward their maps, had other challenges. And now the NTIA must review and approve the challenges to the state maps. Okay. So we've done step 11, NTIA must review and approve challenge results and final map. We've lost 9 of the applicants at that point. Step 12, states must run a competitive sub-granting process.
Oh my fucking God. At step 12, after all this has been done.
Yeah, none of that could have happened along the way here. We have now lost 17 more applicants. So now 30 of 56 have completed step 12. Step 13, states must submit a final proposal. This all the proposals weren't enough to NTIA. Now that goes to 3 of 56. So we've gone in the last couple steps from 56 had gone to this point to 3 of 56. Step 14, the NTIA must review and approve the state's final proposal. And that is 3 of the 56 jurisdictions and states are there. In summary, states are nearly at the finish line. Initial proposal, by my read, we have had at least 2 initial proposals.
So this is liberals finding out how government does work.
Yes,
I'm sorry, you killed me from boredom. I had to use the AED on the wall to bring myself back to life. Sorry.
Yeah, but the point though is the sad thing is not so much the Jon Stewart piece, right? The sad thing is the fact that government actually works that way, and most people don't even know that's how government works.
I don't know why that's sad or surprising to anyone, because government, like any other organism, wants to live. So if you give it the opportunity, it's going to create as much regulation, red tape, and busy work for itself to protect itself and create more government.
Well, Joe, one of the things that we definitely had during the Biden administration was where, the administration was actually in charge, not the executive. And so, of course, the administration is going to create processes that are best for itself, just like you said. And so I'm not surprised. You're not surprised. Anybody who understands the nature of this beast is not surprised. But Joe, most people thought that Biden was president. Most regular Republicans thought that Biden was president.
I don't know realize that Republicans did. I think most Democrats did. But
well, I know most Democrats did, but I'm just saying that I talked to plenty of Republicans who said, Biden's just a bad leader. That's the reason why this is happening. No, he's not in charge. They didn't realize that he's just because when I would say to my friends that who are oh yeah, I can't wait for Trump to win. I was like, well,
here's
at least Biden has.
Is that everyone says that? Yep, Biden wasn't in charge. He was his figurehead. But then everyone expected magically that would change when Donald Trump sat down in that chair.
Right, that the administrative state wouldn't fight back, which is exactly what we're seeing.
Like, oh, shucks, I guess our free ride is over.
In fairness, though, in the first Trump administration, he really never went after the administrative state, right? I mean, he wanted to work with it, essentially. Or he thought that maybe he could suborn it or something. I don't know. But ultimately, he's actually hacking away large parts of the administrative state. And if it, of course, is fighting back. So as any organism would. All right, let me move on to the next one here. So it's because of the need to cut shit like that rural broadband plan out. You're end up firing a lot of federal workers, as well we should. You're going to cut back a lot of federal spending, so that contracts aren't going out to companies that were originally getting contracts, as well we should. But to say it has no impact is, honestly, that's naive to say, because it does have an impact. There are people who, there are Joe Schmoes, blue collar guys showing up to work who are going to lose their jobs because the company was tied to USAID grants, or it was tied to FEMA grants, or contracts, or all this kind of stuff. So it's going to have an impact on the economy, very much like what. And so I'm going to turn it over to Pete St. Onge real quick and let him kind of use this video where he kind of explains it. I think this is very good because he's talking about the Ed Dowd report that talks about the sharp recession that we will possibly face and in this year. And so once we hear this, then I want to turn it over to you guys. What does that mean for us, in our world? So let's watch the video and then we'll go.
A recession from government spending cuts and mass deportation. My friend Ed Dowd is out with a new report predicting we could see a, quote, short but deep recession in 2025, driven by massive cuts to government spending. What's changed, according to Dowd, is just how much wasteful spending and corruption Doge has uncovered. He calls the fraud, quote, mind-shocking. Now, we always knew there was a lot of waste in government. I'd guessed north of $600 to $700 billion, or about 10 cents on the dollar. But I, too, was pretty mind-shocked just how much pure corruption there is. To the point, taxes are effectively bankrolling the entire left and its NGO industrial complex, potentially to the tune of hundreds of billions. To give a flavor, one NGO led by failed Democrat Senate candidate Stacey Abrams had $100 in the bank, 0 full-time staff, yet it got a $2 billion climate grant. So this matters partly because it funds the AstroTurf left. It ain't democracy, it's money. But also because all those billions keep inflation going and prop up GDP, which bizarrely counts $1 billion in government handouts as if it was $1 billion cranked out by a factory. This all plays havoc with the economic numbers. So to illustrate, government-funded NGOs alone employ about 6 million people. If they were all fired, that alone would drive unemployment to 8% and knock consumer spending into recession. Meanwhile, Dowd estimates spending on illegals between $50,000 and $100,000 per illegal out of your pocket. Multiply that times 10 to 15 million illegals, and it comes to between 50 billion and 1.5 trillion reduction in government spending. Now, if that sounds high, last year New York City announced that it was spending $12 billion on illegal immigrants, including putting them up in luxury hotels. So if you put the NGOs and the illegals together, cutting off the free money could knock nearly 5% off GDP. That would make it a proper recession, actually a fairly deep one, with hundreds of thousands laid off from NGO activists to people providing free housing and free medical care to illegals on your dime. Of course, it would also be a massively wealth-generating recession. All those extra nurses and dentists mean you can actually get an appointment. But media will run with GDP and paint it black. Finally, housing. So Dowd notes that illegal immigrants have been holding up rent prices, which is keeping housing expensive. Mass deportation would be great for blue-collar Americans who could get a break on rent or even buy a house. But the drop in housing demand could ripple through prices, potentially, according to Dowd, setting off a 2008-style housing crash. Now, 2008 was more about liar loans and lending money to deadbeats rather than housing demand. Still, the heady days of double-digit growth in house prices could be over for a while. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. Between cutting...
All right, gentlemen. This makes a lot of sense to me. 6 million people work for NGOs that are basically government funded. If you get rid of all those, then it drives unemployment to 8 million. Yes, and these are non-productive jobs. There's nothing being produced for the economy in those NGO jobs. It's basically moving a paper from one desk to another. Or managing, I don't know, a grant or something. Guys, this is just something it's not sustainable. And so, yeah, it's going to hurt. But all these people are going to need jobs, right? And we need plumbers, and we need, other people out there who can actually do work. So they're going to get some training maybe and enter new jobs. Where do you guys think this is going? It'll hurt in the near term, but I think ultimately we'll be better off for it.
I think that if cuts to government spending send your economy into a deep recession, you were spending too much on government. Pretty simple. It's just basic economics. And for the record, we were in a recession almost a decade ago. Where we are now actually meets the technical description of a depression.
Right.
All we do is keep changing the definitions to fit the current situation, so we don't have to call it what it is. But I digress, right? So, I'm down with a little bit of short-term pain to eliminate all this unnecessary spending. Washington, D.C. was never intended to be a major metropolis and have all of these people living there and all of these employees. We really need to cut it way, way, way back to its constitutionally mandated size, some might say.
All the K Street stuff needs to disappear, I think, and all the government money that goes into K Street needs to disappear.
We need to start with closing the house liquor store. That's a great idea.
Hey, Cannon, this is all kind of in your backyard. What's the opinion of folks there in Baltimore on cutting back, and then how this is potentially going to impact you guys?
Well, the crazy part is that here, people are pissed off. They're thinking like, "Oh my gosh, he said on day one that this was going to turn around." I'm like, that's not how stuff works. That's not how it works. Like if you're in debt, you're going to go through some hard times before you get yourself back together again. And that's the same thing with this. We see what the government cuts, we see what the job losses. We better go into a tariff war to try to make ourselves whole again, or make the country profitable. It's going to be a hard road to hoe. You know what I mean? It was never going to be easy. It was never going to be at the snap of a finger. At the snap of a finger that we were going to be able to turn the economy around. I said maybe 2 years, right, from the time he gets in office, that we may turn around and start to see some prosperity. But we were going to see some hard times before that. It's just how things work. And I think people are being unrealistic when they look at it and say, I don't understand. We voted for him and things seem to be getting worse. Like, well, because for the last 4 years, the previous administration have been effing off with our money. You know, they put us in tremendous debt. We're $42 trillion in debt, and we have to turn that around. You know, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah. Watcher, what's your kind of thoughts on this? You've been a little quiet today.
I think it's a bold step to finally acknowledge the recession we've been in for 2 years.
Go ahead.
No, it's just, look, we changed the definition of the word so many times. How do we even? There's no.
Well,
you can only like change definitions, and so if you're trying to navigate, right, you can only change the definitions of stuff so many times before everybody gets fucking lost looking at the same map, right? So,
you know, until we change our thinking on what the value of gold and silver means, we're not really going to understand where we really are. Everyone keeps saying that the price of gold keeps going up, which is true on its face. But it's not actually the price of gold that is going up. Gold remains a constant. It is the value of the dollar that keeps going down. It costs more dollars to buy that same ounce of gold. So we have to change our thinking to that level.
And I mean, Alan Greenspan said it best. You know, we've seen the Biden administration print money, you know, tricking on these hoes on credit, and we ain't have it. You know, and Alan Greenspan said it best. He said, you can print as much money as you want to print, but at a certain point, we won't be able to determine how much that money is worth. And now we're starting to see that.
Yeah, it was funny when Elon Musk was shocked that there's just this magical machine that they punch a button on that creates more money in the economy. I'm like, who didn't know that? I mean that's fairly obvious.
Well, you know, so a couple of things that he mentioned in there are kind of ring true to me, right? So first is that, yeah, you're going to negatively impact the economy if you all of a sudden pull back a lot of this stuff, a lot of this money. But the idea is you're pulling back the money so then you can ultimately pay down the debt and reduce the deficit, right? So that's a good thing. I think it'll be a good thing long term, right? And then the other thing is that, you know, Joe, we've been talking about the government's cooking the books for the longest time. Oh, you know, 4% unemployment, whatever, you know, or, you know, revise, you know, jobs upwards or downwards or whatever, you know, it's because they're cooking the books. And what we're seeing here is a great example. They're counting all this money that they're putting into these NGOs as legitimate gross domestic product. Right? There's no product. This is just the government moving. It's a government transition of money from one useless organization, i.e. the federal government, to another useless organization, which are friends of the federal government that ultimately produce nothing. I mean, getting rid of non-productive, you know, workers, I think is a good thing. It may put people on the street for a little bit, but most of those people are capable workers who can do something else.
Yeah, and I agree. And I said that on my show before. You know, I said it's going to suck in the long run. I said maybe there'll be another hiring boom later. But right now, it's something that we don't have the luxury to do right now. But, you know, if you do if you are worth your weight in salt and whatever skill set you have, you'll be just fine in the private sector. You know?
Yeah.
But for right now, the government, like, for example, the Inflation Reduction Act increased inflation. They added 82,000 IRS agents in that bill. We didn't even need that. That's just a waste of money, like I said. And then you got a lot of these agencies that are redundant. You know, we're starting to see them trying to shrink the government. Oh, we don't need this department because this department can do that. And we don't need these two departments because this one department can do what these two departments are doing. And that's how things should be done. Like I told people, I said, Trump isn't sitting in his office laughing diabolically. These are hard decisions. Saying that you're going to fire all these people are hard decisions to make. You know what I mean? But it has to be done. He has to make the hard decisions in order to turn his country around. And people just got to understand that. I know it sucks, but, you know, endure for a night. Joy will come in the morning.
Well, Watcher provided this kind of concrete example of, showing that things are kind of, we're in for a tough time. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon says that customers are exhibiting stress behaviors, and it's already tanked the company's valuation by $22 billion. 22 billion, no big whoop. Walmart's market cap dropped $22 billion after news broke that Tuesday that consumer confidence in the U.S. plummeted to a 12-year low. CEO Doug McMillon just said the last month that he'd noticed stress behavior from consumers who were more budget constrained. The consumer confidence is waning. It's hurting retailers, big and small, and it even comes from the world's largest retailer, Walmart. Guys, what do you guys read into this? I mean, I'm no economist, but I can tell that if regular people are hurting, then Walmart's hurting.
Well, if you look at the retail sector in general, some big names have declared bankruptcy or major store closures. For example, Joann Fabrics, very popular craft store, out of business. Kohl's closing stores. All these large retailers are struggling because no one's spending money, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I think you're 100% correct. Cannon, when was the last time you went shopped at Walmart?
3 days ago. When got me a juicer, but also I was in there. I got a couple of grocery items, and those grocery items, I think I got like maybe 10 things. It cost me $80 for 10 items that would have normally been like a $30 run. It is expensive, and I can see why people aren't spending as much money. But again, this was also going on under the other administration, and this isn't an overnight fix. Things are slowly starting to come down, but the hard times ain't over.
Hey.
So, like I said, we got another probably 2 years before we start to see some positive uptrend.
I think that's right. I think it's potentially bad for us in the short term, but I think ultimately it's going to be long term good for us. Hey, let's go to this last story here, and then we'll wrap it up. At least we've got people thinking the right way, right? Senator Cruz introduces companion bill to prohibit the Fed from issuing a CBDC. CBDC. What's that? Watcher, what's a CBDC?
Central bank digital currency.
That's right. And
it's a non-crypto, fully
centralized.
It is,
it's a digital centralized currency where they're able to then put rules on the dollars that you can spend. If they say that you can't buy it, you can only buy X amount of beef, and they could literally track how much beef you buy with your CBDC, and then basically you are unable to use your currency to buy a beef for the rest of the month or for the rest of the year or whatever it may be.
CBDC is another way of implementing social credit.
100%. That's exactly what it is. Joe, we're talking about Senator Cruz introduces a bill to prohibit the Fed from issuing a CBDC.
Yes.
My thought is that, at least we have people that are kind of on the right track when it comes to some of this stuff, as far as economic kind of rules of the road. Anything you want to say about CBDCs before we dive into this a little further?
It is absolutely diabolical. It is a terrible idea. Yeah. Government has no business in this area because then they can make your money. They can turn your money off at any time. They can close your account. They can put timers on it, tell you have to spend it and can't save it. And I want to point out that the U.S. dollar coin came out supported by Donald Trump Jr. yesterday, and that is a slippery slope towards a CBDC. So don't go for that.
Like, look at China right now. China is 96% digital currency.
Yeah,
and that's how they control their citizens. Even I I remember hearing a story about a lady who was here working, and she was walking every day, and one of the guys that was at the building kept trying to give her a ride, and she would never take the ride. And then he finally asked, like, why? She said, well, I have to get my steps in. If I don't get my steps in, then my health insurance is taken away from me. You know what I mean? But when you got central bank digital currency and no hard assets, guys, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Just imagine if, you know, you're talking like we're talking on this podcast, or I talk like I talk on my podcast. They'd freeze my assets. I wouldn't have any money. It'd be gone. I would have nothing. You know, it's another way of control. Like I said, social credit. That's how you keep people in line. Is through fear and through debt. And the CBDC is both.
Yeah. You want to buy groceries? You need to delete that post, right? That's what it will be like.
Imagine having the money to buy a house, you got the credit, but you don't got the social credit. You're sitting in front of the bank, the loan, banker, and the banker, he goes, yeah, you know, you guys have perfect credit. You got your down payment, but you said something bad about, you know, President Xi, you know, on whatever.
Right.
And, no, so we can't give you this loan.
Yeah. You can't buy an airplane ticket because, you know, you have to have a certain social credit score in order to fly. So just a real quick, just to kind of any confusion, there's a difference between a CBDC and a USD stable coin. The big difference is the CBDC has got to be controlled by the central bank of the nation, and a lot of these countries are doing this, like what Cannon talked about with China. But a stable coin is kind of like a business to business transaction medium. So that they don't have to go through a bank, and the good news for if there is a good news for these stable coins, it's that almost all of them, and I mean all of them, are denominated in the U.S. dollar, which continues to kind of enforce the dollar kind of supremacy as the global currency of exchange, which, as long as we're in debt, we want that to continue. Once we get out of debt, you do whatever the fuck you want. But as long as we're in debt and we have to finance the debt, having the global exchange currency is absolutely in our benefit. Okay. Gentlemen, that's all I've got. 1 hour, 53 minutes. Let's go around the horn. Joe, kind of looking into the weekend, I think that you've been spot on with a lot of this domestic disturbance stuff. What's your kind of take going into the weekend?
We're going to have a spicy weekend. We're going to see a series of attacks on Tesla. You're possibly also going to see a lot of pro-Palestinian protests. And don't forget that Hamas calls for literal terrorist attacks over the weekend. Pay attention, stay strapped, stay close to home. Do what you got to do, but be safe while you do it. Watch for the crazies. They will be out.
Yeah. Cannon, what about you? What, looking into the weekend and next week, what do you think we're going to see?
I agree with Joe. I think we're about to start to see Summer of Love start to rear its beautiful, beautiful head. This will be 2.0. But it's going to be an interesting spring and a summer. Like I told people, this is America season 4. It's lit. I'm telling you that much. But I'll be in New Jersey this weekend at the Grifty Awards. So, you know, hopefully nothing crazy happens up there. Unfortunately, I have to go up there naked because I can't carry any of my weapons to New Jersey, which is just wild. But yeah, I agree with Joe. We got Summer of Love 2.0 on the horizon, brought to you by your favorite redacted people, you know, old Georgie Boy and They Them the Collective.
Watcher?
I mean, they mostly took everything I was going to say. I guess just watch for. Remember, the enemy always gets a vote. For instance, China just blocked the one of the major players in Hong Kong that was going to be selling Panama Canal ports to BlackRock. Just got personally blocked by doing so by the CCP. So just remember.
Like I said, the CCP. the CCP may not end up on the right side of the. They may end up with the short end of the stick on this one. So we'll see where that goes. The question is, will Panama need a little stiffening of the back in order to act in its and the U.S.'s best interest? That'll be a good question. So my thing is that gold is over 3,000. It's 3,100, I think, right now. I predict 3,500 gold by the end of the year. Probably before then, honest. If
I don't think that's unbelievable at all.
Yeah, because you're going to see a lot of people go to gold as that kind of hedge against the falling not the dollar per se, but the markets. The markets have been hit pretty tough lately, and gold is never going to make you rich, but it's going to preserve your wealth. That's what gold does, right? It's not an investment. It's a store of your wealth, and it doesn't go down against historic, indexes. Okay, guys, that's all I've got. Thank you very much, Joe Cannon. Thanks for joining us, Cannon. It's been too long. You're always welcome, and Watcher, as always, setting up the show. You picked a good thumbnail for us today, so thank you very much. Chat, you guys are awesome as well. If you haven't done already, please like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notification. Get out there and maybe share the link out there and let people know that, hey, there was a good show. Scott and Joe and Cannon and Watcher did a great show on domestic issues today. Give it a look. That would be much appreciated. And if you really want to be helpful, get it down in the chat of Rumble and YouTube and let folks know, or let us know what you thought of the show down there. That's all I got. As always, stay safe.